Hi, and welcome to the Grief and Potluck podcast. My name is Ginger. I'll be your host. Hello. Welcome, welcome. Isn't this a cute little sign? I picked that up. To-dos. So much to do. Well, I hate to say it, but I was a little unprepared for this. I was super hopeful that I was going to be doing an interview today, but that changed. Life happens. So instead, we're going to talk about green burials. Just a touch. Going to touch on green burials and how they are there. I mean, it used to just be not the thing to do. In reality, it was the thing to do. Going back centuries, yes, pretty much. If you go far back into the world we used to live in, really, you died and you got put in the ground. That's kind of how that went. Now, green burial has basically made a resurgence. So we can't say it never existed because in reality it did. So, green burial. What exactly is that about? Well, green burial is a little bit of a general topic. When we get down to the brass taxes, it is basically you're being put in a conventional cemetery ground, but you're being buried without being shoved into a huge type of casket. So essentially, there are three types of green burials. So a hybrid burial ground is a conventional cemetery that allows for burials without those outer containers. So you don't have the major casket, you don't have the major concrete vault. Natural burial ground is a setting that prohibits outer burial containers, the burial of bodies embalmed with toxic chemicals, and burial containers made of anything other than natural materials. So you're going into the ground natural, pesticide free. Yay! Then there's conservation, which, on top of being naturally buried, it's technically in a government or a nonprofit organization that is doing this. So as far as like the ground is involved, that's the kind of situation you're looking at. You're looking at hybrid burial ground, conventional cemetery for burials without your outer burial containers. Natural barrier prohibits those burial containers, an embalmed body, because that's toxic chemicals. And basically anything other than natural materials is out. So no pesticides, etc. And then a conservation burial ground is, besides being similar to natural burial ground, a conservation burial ground must be run by either a government agency or a nonprofit conservation organization with the legal right to long-term custody of the burial land. So, you're going to go in one of these types of grounds. Now, a green burial is on the rise, as we said. Now, technically, green burial, as we stated, it already has happened. It was in the past, and now there is a resurgence. So people are excited to basically go in the ground like you would bury a pet out in the backyard, essentially. Of course, that's technically illegal in some places too. So, you can't go bury yourself in the backyard, though. So, And things happen when you bury somebody in the ground naturally. You have to watch out because concrete vaults are put in for a reason. Why? Because people walk over graves. It just happens. So when you don't have that, the ground's going to kind of dip in a little bit. So hence the deep factor of 6 feet under. I'm sure there was a logic to that, and that's why that exists most likely. So since green burials are on the rise, and since forever it seems we have not done green burials, once the process of embalming and cremation became the normal thing. So green burials used to be normal if you really think hard about it. Only way to go about it, shove you in the ground back in the day. Bury you under a pile of rocks. I mean, yeah, you see it in movies, but you know it had to happen. It's just a fact. And now they're making a comeback. So the rise in green burials is likely due to a result in environmental awareness. There was a survey done and by Funeral and Memorial the Information Council, which revealed that people's interest in green burials had gone up around 2015, more so by about 10% than the previous 5 years past. So that was back in 2015. And the rapid rise of interest in green burials is evidence of North America more so. And it has grown from just one place to be green buried to approximately over 300 places as of 2017 to put yourself in a green cemetery burial situation. So apparently at that point in time, 41 states in the United States and 6 provinces in Canada, including funeral homes, cemeteries, and product providers, are all in now on the green burial option. Now, it's not everywhere yet, so you gotta look out. I'm actually researching for the state of Florida. So far, it's 40 acres. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of acreage if you think about it. The joke then came to my mind, 40 acres and a mule, which is a statement from the past where they were giving out land. Feel free to research it. But when I heard 40 acres, it occurred to me later. I was like, 40 acres, do I get a mule? 40 acres? I mean, that's a lot of land to cover, and I know a lot of cemeteries probably aren't currently 40 acres worth. So that says something. Now, there are apparently varied routes to go when you're approaching a green burial. There are some commonalities. So, burials for the green life are typically non-toxic. As we stated, you're not embalmed, and all those embalming fluids, unfortunately, are cancerous. So obviously you're dead, you're not getting cancer. But people that handle those embalming fluids can run that risk. So that is something I learned not too far back. Let's see. So on top of non-toxic, there are the biodegradable materials, which are also actually used. I first heard about in Sweden. So in a past conversation with a lady from Sweden, we talked about the biodegradable factors. So the coffins had to be biodegradable, the urns had to be biodegradable. So in this case, for green burials in the US of A, biodegradable materials are used. So If they're not biodegradable, they can't be used. If harmful chemicals are not used during embalming, hence you're not going to be embalmed. And if the casket is not covered by a concrete vault. So essentially, you're going in the ground as is, probably wrapped up in a shroud. And I'm sure if you've seen pictures, it's pretty much just a sheet, a cheesecloth of sorts, if you will. We'll figure out a little bit later on in another episode for green burials the concepts of what is actually the materials used when you are in the ground. But essentially, natural materials such as wood, those food containers, quite literally, are made of biodegradable material. So they don't fill up the landfill, they break down. Essentially, that is what a lot of these coffins are made of. There are also wicker and straw coffins, and essentially, wood is also biodegradable, but over a long period of time. So we'll get into the nitty gritty of the physical items used in a green burial in a future podcast. I just kind of wanted to give you a general feel of a green burial, so that you were kind of aware that of the basics. So in addition to choosing a green burial, you're, foregoing your traditional concrete headstones or grave markers. And in this case, you're probably going with a tree, or you're probably going with a regular stone. So if family and loved ones come to visit you in the ground, as it were, they can find you in this field of sorts. So you're either marked off by a tree, you're marked off by maybe a bush that got planted, or stones. So you could have a nice large natural stone on your spot, but you're not necessarily marked up. And I know for a fact, having had family in the field, in the headstone business, that it got expensive for people. So they kind of quit considering headstones for a while. It was pretty expensive. And I know people, in the past, obviously that was the way you did it. It was just step 1, step 2, step 3, done. But now, because people aren't able to afford things as they used to at some point in our life, they have foregone headstones, either gone with like a small plaque, either just a little cone with a flower in it, some real basic stuff. And that's what they can afford. So it's understandable. It can seem limitless when it comes to environmentally friendly options, but essentially, you're kind of limited, because when it comes to burial materials, you're dealing with the coffins, shrouds. They're kind of made of bamboo, wicker, silk, hemp. Honestly, hemp is quite the sustainable material. There's no concrete down in the ground, and there's no real grave markers. So it could be pretty basic. Pretty basic. Which it's not a bad way to go about it. There are quite a few books on the matter. Let's take you to the books. So there are the books. We have Greening Death. That one is by Suzanne Kelly, Reclaiming Burial Practices and Restoring Our Tie to the Earth. See, reclaiming, because we used to do this back in the day. And then we have Grave Matters, A Journey Through the Wooden Funeral Industry, A Natural Way of Burial. And that one is by Mark Harris. And then I really like the cover on this one. It's called Reimagining Death, Stories, and Practical Wisdom for Home Funerals and Green Burials by Lucinda Herring. And might be possible. Let's see if I can zoom in here. Yes. Natural, legal, and innovative after-death care options are transforming the paradigm. Reimagining Death offers stories and guidance for home funeral vigils, advanced after-death care directives, green burials, and conscious dying. When we bring art and beauty, meaningful ritual, and joy to ease our loss and sorrow, we are greening the gateway of death and returning home to ourselves, to the wisdom of our bodies, and to the earth. I think if I can, she might be one of the lovely ladies that I get for book club, because that sounds like a book I think some of us would be interested in. All right, Going Out Green, One Man's Adventure, Planning His Own Burial. Intriguing. By Bob Butz, Butts, I assume is how you say that name. All right, then there's another book out there that I think is probably a good one called The Green Burial Guidebook. Wonder why. That is not where I want to go. I want to go. Okay, so the author is Elizabeth Fournier. 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 So basically, she talks about walking through, she's been dubbed the Green Reaper, providing comprehensive and compassionate guidance covering everything from green burial planning and home funeral basics to legal guidelines and outside the box options. So there are legal guidelines to consider here. So that said, be aware, because you can't just go shoving your body in the ground somewhere at large. It's not exactly the way it happens. There are procedures, there are paths. So when you die, you have to inform people. And those people, if you are on the expected situation of passing away, that would be the mortuary is informed. And then you've set it up with the funeral home to essentially come pick you up after you have gone to the mortuary. Or, and depending on the circumstances, you can pretty much be picked up by the funeral home. So if you all of a sudden die, that's a whole other process that requires you to go to the morgue and get found out as to what happened to you. In case it was heart attack or overdose or who knows what's happened to you. So there are processes in place that will be discussed in the future. And again, I want to thank you for stopping by. This is kind of just a quick run on to green burials and how they are. So if you just hear that word out loud, you can make some general assumptions. True. But in the upcoming articles for January, green burial is going to be further discussed. And so there will be more knowledge about them. And I do hope that you are paying attention to the website, www.celebrationsoflifemagazine.com. because I post all kinds of things there to keep you abreast of what is going on. That said, currently you are listening to the Grief and Potluck podcast. Oh, there. Ta-da! So we launched. It is November 2020, and here we are. Now, also, if you've not visited the website, I highly recommend it. We were able to learn about the Hindu culture on death and how that happens. So that was quite the interesting story there. I recommend you check it out. And we were blessed by Shalini, I can't say this right, I apologize. Shalini Bala Lucas. She created a dance situation. Her husband passed away of cancer, and pretty much dance is what gave her purpose after his passing. So that is quite the interesting article. There is also a link in there. And again, this is for November, so time is limited on this. You can visit her website, and then you can also visit, because I did this here, our link for the 2020 Part 3. I did link it. Give me a second. It's in here. Part 3 audio form. Where is it? Right here. The huge thing that says right there.
Your brain.
That huge thing right there. That's what you click. Okay. Yeah. So the giant thing that says Grief and Potluck Podcast on the page for India is what you click. And that will take you to the episode that we conquered with Shalini in regards to finishing up the article. So there's 3 parts to the article. Part 1 and part 2 are in text form. Part 3 is in the virtual world as a podcast. So feel free to listen to that. Essentially, the whole thing is in the virtual world, but I did it in 3 parts. So part 1, part 2 are typed out. Part 3 is podcast. Also, the month of November, we cover how children cope with death. There are some great articles and information there, so check that out. And also dealing with a pet death. We love our furry friends, and we got to reach out, and I have a couple pet death doulas in their articles are there under pet death doula and furry friend. And then coming up in 2021, we have some really great things coming up. We're going to have a book club started. The book is going to be All Set for Black. Thanks by Weinstein. Hello. I need another cup of coffee, apparently. Miriam Weinstein, All Set for Black. Thanks is the title of the book. That will quite literally be held on January 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern. We will be doing a Zoom chat, so it will be available for you to join on it live, as well as it will be recorded. So hence, if you missed it, we'll get you on the backside too. No stress. All right. So, lots going on, lots coming up. 'Tis the season to be busy. And I don't know about you, but I'm going to find another excuse to eat chocolate. Totally all about that. So we're going to create a advent calendar together because I think it's very important that we involve kids when it comes to death. Let me explain, because you're going to twist my words and it's not going to be pretty. So here we go. So that said, let me find it on the Pinterest page. What happens is children deal with death and they handle things differently than we do as adults. We're not all fully formed, functioning human beings when we are in that world at large. So I have created on the Pinterest page, which you will find the links to on the website, www.celebrationsoflifemagazine.com, the kids and funeral board. So go here, see the links, go here, find the board, kids and funeral. There are some really great activities for them to step outside, do things with nature, help you create a charcuterie board, get creative with their food. I mean, I'm not saying you got to go crazy. I'm just saying the concept is there. We're all in it together if we're dealing with this crisis of loss and we lost a loved one and we're trying to figure it out. These are some things that you can, possibly do together to communicate how you're feeling, what you're going through, etc. So that is my goal for this page at the end of the day. And so in so doing, that looks super yummy. In so doing, what we're doing is creating an advent calendar. So by creating an advent calendar together, I feel that it is one way to work through conversations in the holiday season coming up. So I will be posting that one very soon, and hopefully that will help in regards to feelings. So it's not just going to be a calendar of chocolate, even though that would be super delicious, but that's done. That's doable. Not a problem. But besides chocolate, what we'll do is we'll insert some great conversation starters as well as some great statements either of faith or of just perk up, things. What just there's, or music, like turn on the radio, find a fun song, start dancing around. So not just, food, not just a statement of faith, but also little fun activities to do. Because that way it's not just a snack, food, yum, yum, yum type calendar. It's a little bit more than just that. So that said, be paying attention, as I do aim to try and have 2 podcasts a week, but legitimately definitely one. And you can just listen to it or you can listen and watch. So totally up to you, however you want to do it. I know some people are hearing impaired. I know some people are visually impaired. So I try to do it out both ways for your benefit. So pay attention. Upcoming will be the Advent calendar, which I'm super excited about. So hopefully you'll stay tuned for that. Thank you again for listening and taking the time out of your schedule to listen to the Grief and Potluck podcast. My name is Ginger. Please also visit the website, www.celebrationsoflifemagazine.com. If you want to connect with us, if you have questions, there is an email on the About page. You can contact us there. Not a problem. Thanks so much. Look forward to talking with you soon. I hope you're having a super great day.